and had to, get back up again or rise up and reinvent ourselves to make ourselves again more relevant for the challenges at hand. Failure is a key part of success, and so our next fireside chat is titled "Failure in Every Success." And so I'd like to invite my friends up here, Dan, Ciprari, and Sara El-Ayed, who are going to be talking to us about failure in every success.
الرحيم. السلام عليكم جميعا. بعتذر انه حتكلم بالانجليزي، بس ضيفنا دان تشيبراري حتكون اللقاء بالانجليزي، فاعتذر منكم انه حيكون الحديث بالانجليزي. So, failures in every success, the challenges and the learnings. How many of you are entrepreneurs who one day thought, I cannot do this anymore? It's difficult. It's painful. All of us. How many? Really? بس 2, 3? How many? A lot. We've all been there. Sometimes you feel that the light at the end of the tunnel is getting dimmer and dimmer. We've been there, but we all have. It's something that we all go through. And today, why Dan and I are here is to talk about this and share experiences and take you through it, but at the same time, let people feel the insight and that you're not alone. But there is a great opportunity in every single challenge that we face, and we can take it from there. How Dan and I met, we're part of an organization that is called MELA, the Middle East Leadership Academy, and it's a wonderful program. There's a lot of MELA family and friends in the audience today, and it's shout out for MELA. Wonderful. So it's a pleasure to be here, and we thank RiseUp. But I want to start with a question to Dan. Dan is the CEO of Pointivo. Okay? And Dan, you have had an amazing career. Give us a quick snapshot on your journey.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So first I want to say that I've been to this region because of MELA probably 7 times over the last 7 years, and I love it. I have a lot of great friends here, and I'm so happy to be back here. So thank you for giving me a reason to be here. So Pointivo is my 5th startup. I've had 4 other startups that I've taken from founding to successful exit. It's been in the software space, drug development, medical device, and then LED lighting space. So I'll talk about those in a minute. Regarding Pointivo, give a little background. Pointivo is a software company in the computer vision and artificial intelligence space. And we've created what we call a 3D intelligence platform that can automatically extract structure from scene. And structures I'm talking about are like roofs and walls of buildings, power distribution lines, transmission towers, cell towers, and the components of those different structures. And our customers are construction, energy, telecom, insurance industries. And the challenge for them is that they have a lot of manual processes around assessing or doing estimates on those structures. And so what our software does is it automates that process. It automates it by taking imagery from manned aircraft, drones, or mobile cameras, and automatically extracting information like dimensions, structures, components of structures, and then any kind of assessment, presents it in a 3D way, and it tracks it over time. So it just gives you a sense of scale of what we're doing. Next year we'll process about 40,000 rooftops. Those will go through our system. We'll do about 6,000 buildings, between 20 and 40,000 cell towers, and about 3 million distribution lines and poles. So we'll do about 4 to 7 million in revenue next year. So that's Pointivo. I'll give you a quick history about my time before that. My first startup was acquired by the first bank in the internet back in the mid-90s, and we rode the internet wave. It was a really fun experience. We had a market cap of about $8 billion at one point, so it was a tremendous fun time. After that, it was about 12 years in the software space. I stepped out, went back and got a master's in engineering, focused on nanotechnology, and that's the study of material at the atomic level. And from that, I started a drug development company taking an anti-cancer drug that was based on nanotechnology into early preclinical trials. We ended up selling that to a mid-sized oncology company. And then I had invested 3 rounds in a medical device company, and it was struggling, so the board asked me to take over, and I ran that. We sold that 18 months later. And then I was mentoring a young entrepreneur in the LED lighting space, and he asked me to come on as CEO, and so we formally founded the company, ran that for about 3.5 years, and sold it to one of the biggest lighting companies in the US. And then after that, I took 2 years off and really got into get back mode, and coach startups, one of the oldest technology startup incubators in the US. And that was one of the best jobs I've ever had, is coaching startups and really giving back to the startup community. So Sarah, I want to hear about you, and I will say that one thing I like to start with is that you were named one of the most influential women in the Arab world by Forbes. So you don't have to start there, but make sure you talk about that.
Yes. Well, it's been a very fun, very fruitful journey, but it's had its ups and downs, and I am proud of everything that's been done. It was an honor to be named most influential woman on the Forbes list, but that came after a very tough, but very challenging, but very, very fun, and amazing journey with a great team. And I want to share with you a story. How many of you today are at the level of you have this amazing company, but you want to turn it into something that it's sustainable, it's growing, and it's not based on one person? Well, our company it was founded by myself and my brother almost 18 years ago, and it was always Sada and Mohammed's company. Even when we have 15 offices across 15 cities across the Middle East and North Africa, people know it as Sada and Mohammed, even though there's 300 plus people in that organization. So in about 2013, we made a decision that to do this, we'd have to have a very strategic succession planning. But that succession planning meant that I would have to step down from my position. And my position was managing partner and vice president of the network, to open doors for others to come in. To me, well, it's not a failure, but it was between me and two other people. So it meant, to me, it felt like I wasn't the one who was able to deliver the next step of the company, and it felt like a personal failure. And so I was at a crossroads then. Sorry, it wasn't 2013, it was 2011. It was when I joined MELA. And so MELA was kind of the Middle East Leadership Academy was where I went right before stepping out of my position. So it kind of helped me see things from a totally different perspective, and that's not really a failure. Stepping down does not necessarily mean that you weren't able to deliver. I will no longer be running the company, but I retained my position on the board, and I went back to being part of the business development and strategy team, because actually that's where my strength was. I'm not an administrative and financial person. I'm more of a people person. So the growth on my side was not growing as fast and developing as other offices, because I was like, no, let's do this, let's not. I was more emotional on that level. And if you want to, own the world and expand in other markets, you have to kind of have a tough, heavy heart, and that was not me. So I accepted that as, and not a failure on my part, but I see it as that, a strength that I can add value in other parts. So that's where MELA helped me, and from there, while I do work, I am on the board, and I work on strategic consultancy programs for TRACCS. I was able to launch my other business, which is a for-profit, but all the profit goes for the support and development of underprivileged communities, and and I found my second passion, which is continue working with people. Okay, well, Dan, you started and sold 4 companies, as you said. How did you find success? What was a challenge that you faced, or something that's very interesting you'd like to share that was a learning for you?
Yeah, so kind of in the spirit of grounded experiences, and I told my story before, it sounded like a lot of success. So I'm going to share with you one of the many nightmares that I went through, and where just on the brink of failure with almost every one of my startups. And so this one was this story is about the LED lighting startup. And we were early in LED lighting in 2007, 2008. And so really pushing the edge of what we'd done. And once we had a product, we had to hire a salesperson. And so being a startup, bootstrapping, it was hard to find a salesperson, but we found one that was truly innovative, and it seemed like the right person, and he was willing to work for very little money. But I had that spider sense that maybe he wasn't the right person. But we didn't have a lot of choice, so we hired him. And I won't go through the details, but 18 months later, really, I had to let him go. And I won't go through why, but that was, so I had to let him go, and I did what you always do when you're letting someone go, especially on the sales front, and I went and talked to all the customers and said, hey, I'm going to let this person go, let's make sure the relationship is strong, and we'll maintain our, you as a customer. And they all said, great. And of course, half of them said, thank goodness, I wish you'd done it sooner. So that was great. And he did try and go back and cause problems with his customers. That didn't work. And I thought we were okay. And then a week later, I received a call from an inspector from the Department of Energy. That's a government agency in the U.S. And he said, you are under official investigation, and you have to open your office. I'm going to be there first thing in the morning. And I'm like, okay. You know, I didn't think we'd done anything wrong, so it was fine. But I knew what I found out later was that anybody in the U.S. can go to a website, to the Department of Energy website, and file a fraud, waste, and abuse claim against any company that does business with the Department of Energy, which we had done. And it starts an official investigation. So he basically just shotgunned anything he could do to cause us problems and filed that claim. And so the inspector came in, and we opened all our books and showed everything. I was very open and honest, and I said, you know, I had kind of recordings of the person, like who had submitted it, so he knew that guy was a little bit crazy. And I thought we actually were fine through the whole process. And then he just did one last check, and it was on the validity of our UL rating on our products, which is the mark you have, and it turns out that was false. And we had no idea. It turns out one of our suppliers was giving us an illegal UL rating out the back door of their factory. It wasn't that the products weren't safe, but it wasn't legal to sell them to us. And so we were in big trouble, because basically every light fixture we put in, which was about 10,000 light fixtures, had to be replaced, and all of our inventory had to be replaced, and we were a small startup, so that truly almost put us under. And the Department of Energy was flexible. It took us about 6 months to get out from under it, but it was brutal. And I will tell you at that point, there was multiple times during that period where I said, I don't know if it's worth it. I'm not sure. And we ended up sticking out. We did end up selling the company about 6 months later, and Cooper and Lighty did about $40 million in our product 2 years later, which we could have never done. But anyway, it was really at the brink of failure from just a bad decision on an employee and sort of the repercussions of that. So and I'll say that kind of what you learn from that is that spider sense of knowing he probably wasn't the right employee. I definitely listen to that going forward. Another part of it too is just being truly open and honest, even when being investigated. It helped a lot that we didn't try to hide anything, and we're completely open.
Interesting, and that's something that we all, I think, face sometimes when we work with other entities, especially maybe governmental or official or even major corporations. We also had an issue. To me, it was a major failure because you have to really read the fine print. We're working on a massive semi-governmental program. It was for about a year and a half, and the payment terms were defined, but in reality, there's quite a few documents. And in one of them, the very, very fine print said, after you deliver the project, we pay you 100%. Whereas we had worked on it being you pay in advance. And so we already signed, once you get the project, you have to deliver. And imagine you have to pay the project fee. Just the cost of the project is about $750,000. And then it took the organization a year and a half to pay us after we finished delivery. So we had suppliers that were calling, asking for their payment. At the same time, we had just bought we had bought our headquarters, so we were moving, we were renovating. We had to put that on hold, stop construction, stop everything to pay off the suppliers, because I'm one of the people that does not believe in saying, well, I haven't been paid, you don't get paid. It's the job has been done, you pay for it regardless of anything. It affected the cash flow, of course, of the office. It affected morale. We were supposed to have been moved within 6 months. We had to delay for another year. But it was a massive learning, is that you read everything and do not sign any agreement at all unless you are 100% happy with it. There was just one line that had we deleted it from the contract would have been fine, but you can write as many proposals as you want. Once you sign that contract, this is it. Alhamdulillah, we were able to do it, but it was a 2 year of a very terrible experience, but all is well, yes. So always read, always make sure that you're in alignment with whoever you're doing business with. This is something that I took personally, because I was the one who signed that contract, and I had to step up and take responsibility for this project, basically. So, well, speaking of funding and projects and government, we're on the capital stage. Can we share some insights in terms of fundraising? How many people are interested in knowing about fundraising and investment opportunities? I mean, Dan here is a guru in these, right, Dan? And I'm sure we can know more.
Yeah, but we're talking about failures. So I'm going to tell you
there is
really
failures in fundraising, is there not?
Yeah, there is.
There's a lot of failures in fundraising and a lot of successes. So what do you give? I mean, we have a few more minutes and we can take questions from the audience, but what can you tell us more on that?
Yeah, so let me just share one story with you, somewhat quick. So with my current company, Pointivo, we went through a fundraising process last year, and we're raising a Series A, and went through, talked to over 50 VCs, and we ended up signing a term sheet. and I started the due diligence process, which is 30 days, and basically looking at talking to customers, looking at legal documentation and structure, make sure passed everything to finalize the investment. They talked to the customers and said that it was the best customer conversations they'd ever had in the life of the VC, because we had differentiated product, good relationships, and then we're going to take over the markets together. So everything was great, and we were going to close on that Tuesday. And the only thing we had to do was there was a sort of a rubber stamp meeting with the investment committee, which was a group within the VC that had external members, which is a little bit different. They just had to see it and make sure that everything was okay, and they've never had anything go wrong in that time. So on Monday, it was only a 20-minute presentation, which we've done 100 times, and 20-minute discussion, and that was it. And so it went great, very engaging, it was very interesting. So no problem. I got a call about an hour later from my champion within VC and said, well, they loved it, but they cut the valuation in half. And I said, what? And they said, yes, we'll still do the deal tomorrow, but it's going to be 50% of what we said it was going to be. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I would never do that. And so I for sure would never allow them to invest at that kind of deal, because I was furious. And so, again, I went and talked to VCs in town. They're like, they've never heard of that. It's crazy. So their reputation is definitely damaged. But so instead, fortunately, our current investors were very supportive, and I gave them a great deal. Not quite as great a deal as 50%, but gave them a great deal. And so that set us back, though. I really had to decide, it wasn't worth it at that point. It was really frustrating. But we just went through another Series A raise, and we had competitive term sheets, and I'm just entering the due diligence process right now. Again, now the one thing I'll say that's different this time, and this is sort of the learning experience, is last year we did it when we were running out of money. And I had to float the last 2 payrolls myself because I had to have it closed. We were smarter this time to where if some reason it happens again, we have time to survive. So just from a learning experience, you always hear it, don't wait to raise until the end, and it typically happens because it's so hard, but really don't, because that terrible thing at the very end can actually happen.
We have time for questions. Okay. Do you have any questions? Or I can continue talking.
Yeah. If we don't have any questions,
there is a question.
There's a question.
There's no question.
Okay. So, Sarah, one thing I'd ask you is that in all your experiences and everything you've learned, I know you're doing a lot on educating startups or helping entrepreneurs in your country and the region. Can you just share what you've done and how you've taken some of what you learned in that space?
Yes, one of the things what I've done is I've taken all the challenges I've faced in terms of setting up business. Now, as you're aware, I set up a company in Saudi Arabia almost 18 years ago when regulations, not only for women, but even for men, were a bit difficult when you're launching your own business. So I've taken all the challenges we've faced, whether it's through regulatory processes or how to set up your business or getting trade license and so forth, and identified what are the challenges being faced and took them down to the smallest level. And we would lobby with the government on fixing that. And at the same time, the training that we do and the work that is done in different cities is based on this, so they know how to move forward. Alhamdulillah, we've been able to do a lot in Saudi. We visit more than 10 cities every year. I'm proud to say that there's a delegation from Munshaat. Munshaat is the SME authority in Saudi Arabia. They're right here, sitting in the front row, and quite a few women entrepreneurs from Saudi. And the whole point is we're working on programs that lessen the issues that affect women in launching their businesses. And then we've even moved that outside of our borders into other countries, helping developing an entrepreneurial mindset and ecosystem. So it's a hand up, not a handout. It's not about giving out charity and money and loans that cannot be paid back, but it's really training, developing, mentoring, empowering women everywhere. We've launched 3 businesses in a refugee camp in Jordan. 3 young ladies have launched their businesses and more to follow, and that's the whole point. So any challenge I've faced, I've turned it into a learning, not just for myself, but for others. I feel everything we've learned, if you don't give it to others, then it makes no sense for you.
Awesome. We actually have like 2 minutes left on the clock, so I wanted to kind of make sure we get all this. I wanted to personally ask a few questions as well. And you might have touched up on this in the chat, but what are some of the personal failures that you have experienced, maybe earlier on in your career? I know, Dan, you don't look a day over 25, so you don't have to think that far back. But if there are any kind of failures that have shaped kind of some of the methodologies that you use or that are relevant to you now. Can you share that with us here? That maybe there's a takeaway for us here from those experiences.
Yeah. So thank you, Mark, on that point about 25. So I'll just reach back about 20 years. So I will say that for me, I've always been the type A, super driven, don't need to sleep kind of entrepreneur, which probably a lot of people fit in that camp. But expecting that out of everybody else is something I really did early on, and it alienates you and the people, and people don't actually like working with you very much. And it's great if you can find people like that, but there aren't that many. And so one thing I really had to do is kind of understand how people work and really focus on that side of it, and in terms of bringing a team on and knowing how to work with them rather than just kind of bulldozing everybody through that process.
Okay. Sarah, how about you?
Does it have to be business-centric?
No, I'm just talking about just...
Okay, well, very briefly, in the first 5 years, I think of my career in developing the company is thinking that I can do it all, and we want to do it all. You want to be superwoman. I want to be the greatest mommy, the greatest, wife, sister, daughter, and running an amazing company and be able to travel over the place. And while I did have a great support system, if just one thing unravels, everything else falls apart. And sometimes it is good to say, I cannot do it. I want to take a break. The first 5 years, I had to concentrate on my career. I had to concentrate on developing the company, so that today I can, just step back and rest and concentrate on other things. And that's why I'm able to do a lot of the programs and things that we do. And so just being honest with ourselves. I mean, how many here are mothers? How many here are juggling, work and family? And you can. 3 years ago, I realized I don't want to be superwoman. I want to be effective, I want to be efficient, and I want to be able to give 100% in the place that I'm in versus my mind running between, home, work, school, and stuff like that. So that was...
Yeah, I can really resonate with that challenge, because that's something that's constantly challenging me as I go through my professional and personal life. Overcommitting to my friends on the social side, overcommitting to potential clients or even current clients with, I have these 5 trips that are happening over the next 3 days, but I can totally get this write-up done for you. No problem, piece of cake. I think that's definitely one of the things that are very current for me, at least. And to kind of share, maybe also I'll reflect the question to myself. One of the failures that I've had early on in my career was I was laid off from a company, and as much as I can kind of pinpoint the business environment that I was in, the company was going down, et cetera, they were laying off a lot of people. But it really was a failure on my side. Out of the X number of people that were let go, I was one of them. So there was clearly something that I wasn't doing. And I had in my exit interview, I had a conversation and I asked the question, what did I do? What was it that brought us to this point? And I got the worst answer in the world, which was, if you really look back on the past couple of months and you think about it, maybe you'll be able to reflect. But it was fine, because I'll tell you something, that was a huge turning point for me in my life, actually, because it really made me sit down and reflect, what could I have done differently? And how can I avoid that type of situation? Because whether it's on founded grounds or not, no one enjoys being laid off or fired or whatnot. But actually, on a more positive note, that's kind of what kickstarted off my journey into filmmaking, because I then left the software engineering world and started asking myself, well, what do I really want to do? Do I really want to be a project manager for the next X number of years, or do I really want to maybe pursue my passion? And then a door opened for me, and I left Toronto. I moved to Cairo, beautiful city, amazing place. 2 years ago, started working here on the campus for a while, and then now working on that. Anyway, but I can really resonate with that failure in every success. And I wouldn't call myself a success story, but my story at least is hallmarked with failures that did lead to some of those successes. So this is a very personal topic, really close to my heart. Lovely chatting with you guys, and thank you very much for joining us.